Module 0. Hi, Joe Cerrone. Today I'm going to go through Module 0, the user interface for AutoCAD. In D2L, the Desire to Learn system, we'll be using this to organize the content for the course. Module 0 goes through the AutoCAD interface, and if we look at our outline of topics, we've organized our topics week by week to go through chapter by chapter for this course. And so things that are in blue will be reading assignments, things that are in green will be hands-on exercises using AutoCAD. And so we're going to look at Module 0, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, getting started. And so if I go to the table of contents here, and then I go to Module 0, we're going to look at the user interface. And we're going to populate this area with things like PowerPoints and videos to assist you in learning the content and curriculum. So let's get started. So the textbook, I'm using a digital copy of the textbook. I'm using this AutoCAD 2023 instructor. And if I go to the first chapter, and I'm going to set this up so that we have both AutoCAD and the chapter here on the textbook. We're going to go through our learning objectives. I take that back. Let's make this a little bit bigger. It's a little glitchy. I'm not sure why it's not reading that correctly, but we're going to look at how the X, Y, and Z coordinate system is defined, the location of elements in the digital format for CAD. We'll understand why we should use and create drawings actual size or full size. We'll start AutoCAD. We'll look at the different areas of the interface. We'll look at different methods for entering commands, things like snap, grid, ortho, polar, dynamic input, and drawing aids. And then we'll look at some customization things that we can do with the software. And so as we go through, the basic concept for AutoCAD is that it's a drafting board replacement. So they kind of make it look like a drafting board right here. And what they are doing is they're showing you coordinates to draw a line. And so this would be coordinate 2, 2, and coordinate 5, 4. And so then they translate that into the user interface for CAD, where they're having the horizontal axis as X and the vertical as Y. And then these coordinates are given as X coordinate, Y coordinate, X coordinate, Y coordinate. So as we go through, this would be X coordinate 2, Y coordinate 2, 2 over, 2 up. And this would be X coordinate 5, Y coordinate 4, 5 over, 4 up. And then they talk about how to translate those coordinates in 3D. And so here we have our coordinates, X coordinate, Y coordinate, Z coordinate. And so this one here, the third coordinate would be your Z. And so this point right here is 8 units over in the X-axis, 2 units up in the Y-axis, and 6 units vertical in the Z-axis. And so the computer does the work for us, which is what's really great about using CAD. And so the CAD will take care of a lot of the math calculations for you. And so as we're working with computer-aided design and things like drawing exchange formats and things, we'll start to cover that as we go through the chapters. The book is an excellent tool for organization, and I believe Al and I have the video set up so that you can see how those concepts are applied using the computer system. And so angles in AutoCAD, 0 is horizontal at the 3 o'clock, 90 would be vertical at 12, 180, if we were to put a clock face on this, would be at 9 o'clock, and then 270. And so these are our angles that we'll work with as we draw lines at specific angles. Like you want a 1-inch line at a 45-degree angle, you would have a line like that. We draw in true size as we work with AutoCAD because when we used to work with drawings on paper, we would actually have to scale them with a ruler. And so some of the old school drafting people who started using AutoCAD will create the lines at a scale. And we'll talk about that as we go through and start to work with AutoCAD. So they're showing some examples of some floor plans here, and then these different plot scales. So here we are starting AutoCAD. We can go and we can click on our start button. If you've followed the installation video, we can go here to AutoCAD 2023, and then you can go ahead and launch AutoCAD 2023. And so mine doesn't show the recently used documents, I'm not sure, but here's our main interface. And so we have these open and new, and this is the main splash page. I'm going to pause here, resuming. And so what I've done is I've configured the textbook so you can see it on the right hand side, and then the main splash page. And then when you start off in the main splash page, you should get the floor plan sample and then some of the other files that come by default that they want you to look at with AutoCAD. And so if we follow the basic textbook here, we can see we've launched AutoCAD. And then as we take a look at the drawing, what they're doing is they're explaining to us what we're seeing here. And so here's our beginning a new drawing tab. We can either start or open existing drawings. And then as we look at the interface, we have the ribbon, the graphics area, the palette, the command line, and then the cursor and the crosshairs. And so what they've done is they've started a new drawing. And so we could do a couple of things. We could either open an existing drawing, like clicking on this floor plan, or we could just start with new. We click on new, brings us into the interface. And here's our ribbon across the top. We have draw commands, modify commands, annotation or dimensioning in text, layers, and then a number of other areas that you can see here as we're working through learning the interface. We have different workspaces that we can choose from. And so as we look at these different files and things like that, what they talk about here is working with an AutoCAD template file. And what you can do here as we start to work with it, if I go back to the start menu and then I wanted to start a new drawing, if I say new, let's try that again, file new, it allows me to use a template. And so AutoCAD is the default template, but we'll be using templates like these B-size architectural templates and other templates that will be preloaded with things like layers for dimensioning, hidden lines, text, and things like that. And we'll be pulling those drawing templates from D2L. We'll get these different templates from D2L, and so it talks a little bit about templates here. But if we look at how the course is organized in D2L here, what we have is an area called All Title Blocks. And you can download these title blocks, and we'll use these title blocks for our different assignments. And so in the first assignment for Module 1, we'll be using a plate title block. And we can come into the D2L and download that, and then open that in AutoCAD. And so we'll see here we are in AutoCAD, and it allows us to have some structure for our drawing. We could download other title blocks like the architectural title block. Or our mechanical title block. And we'll be using these different title blocks to organize the course. And so in Module 0, we're going through the drawing interface, and we're continuing to cover our textbook chapters. And so another thing that we can work with in these drawings, I'm just going to go back to a default template. is the ribbon. And so here's our ribbon, goes across the top, and these are where our drawing commands are located. We have commands like line, polyline, circle, arc. And if you hover over the commands, it will give you an explanation of how to work with those commands. And if you want more help, you can hit the F1 key, and then it'll take you to that area about the arc. And it's really great because it's like having a digital textbook that'll take you to the page that you have an inquiry about. So we have an application menu. That's the big red A. If you click on the big red A, you'll get things like new, open, save as, import, export. And so there's a number of areas and file types that we can work with as we work with AutoCAD. Over here, there's a menu bar, and it's called a tip. And so what they want you to look at is ways to improve the use of the interface. And one way is by selecting this little triangle with the line over the top. And I'm going to hide my menu bar. And you'll notice that some of the text over here for the menu bar disappeared. And if I enable it with show menu bar, you'll see now that I have this other menu bar with the commands. And if I progress through that, you'll see that all the words are there for the commands. And so things like drafting settings and being able to set up grid and snap would be accessible through the pull-down menu under tools. And so that's one way of working with the interface, is with the menu bar. And so they show you how to invoke commands like that. Another system is palettes. And so if I use a layer command, it brings this interface called a palette. And in a palette, you'll have these different layer available commands. And so if I were to open up an existing drawing, like our title block for our plate, and then I look at my palette, you'll see that there are layers for the border, for center lines, for the grid, for hidden lines, and then the colors and properties that are associated with that. And palettes are collapsible, and so you can collapse them, you can move them around, you can dock them and things like that. But as we start to learn how the software works, we have the ribbon, we have the menu bar, and then we have these palettes. Continuing. When you're in different commands and you right mouse click, you'll get shortcut menus, which are menus that are geared specifically toward the commands that you're in. And so shortcut menus are things like if I'm in the circle command and then I right mouse click, I'll get the different types of circles that I can draw. And it's only for those different things. And so shortcut menus are quick. And as you get better with the commands, you'll learn to navigate those throughout this course. You can enter commands on the keyboard in the command line. And so this is the command line right here. And this is old school. You can type in commands like line, and then you can choose the line command, and then you can draw lines. Right mouse click, enter. Come back to the command line, type in C for circle, and it will then go and find all the commands that begin with those letters, and then you can choose to draw circles. And that would be command line input, which is just a method of entering commands. You could also just click on it right here in the ribbon and draw circles. And then it talks a little bit about the mouse and the wheels and things like that. We'll use the left mouse button to choose commands, the right mouse button for shortcut menus, and the wheel to pan and zoom. So you need a wheeled mouse, and if you turn the wheel, it will zoom. If you push the wheel, it will pan. And then the textbook likes to kind of lay things out in different methods. And if I back up one more page here, so when they go through methods of entering commands, you have the keyboard, which would be here where we type in commands. You have the menu bar, which is, where we can go through and pull things off of the menu. We have icons and shortcut menus. And then they explain things like how to draw a line. And so when they look at how to input the line command, you have the ribbon where you could just click on line. And now I'm drawing lines there. You could go to the menu bar and type in the line command. So I can go here, L-I-N-E, enter, and now I'm drawing lines. Or you could just type the alias of L. And so it's just different ways of making a line. And so there's 3 different ways that you can invoke the line command. And so that's how the book is laid out. It's a little difficult to follow, in my opinion, to read a book on how to draw it. That's why we make these videos explaining them. But it's a great way to keep track of all the commands and to be able to get into all the other applications that, as you learn the commands, have higher levels of learning that we can then engage in. And so things like systems options for the circle, we can draw circles, 3-point circles, 2-point circles, tangent, radius, different construction methods. And then as we work with the interface, if you click on this triple bar over here in the bottom corner, it's our customization menu. And we want you to put on all the check marks to get started. And that'll give you these icons down here at the bottom, and they'll be blue when they're on. And so with the coordinates menu on, I can see the coordinates. If I uncheck it, I no longer see those coordinates. Check it back on, and then that is on the interface. Things like line weight. So for example, here's my line weight button. If I turn that off, the lines will be really thin. If I turn it on, they'll be thicker, provided I'm in a template that has a line weight associated with that. And then if you right click on certain commands, you'll get subcommands within those. And so for example, if I wanted to go through and to work on my polar settings, I can right click on that and I can go then into my settings and then access these other menus and these other commands by right mouse clicking on those commands. And then as we go through and we draw, dynamic input means the cursor is where the input is. And so this is a better way than the command line. And so it's newer. And so we want to have our dynamic input on. And what that means is that the cursor will be our input area. So if I hit the escape key, those things will go away. And then if I go to the line command, you see how when I move the cursor, it says specify first line, and then it updates to those coordinates. That's command line input, meaning it's going to follow wherever the command line is on the screen. Polar tracking is this button right here, and this allows the drafting system to work like a drafting machine. And I usually set this at 15-degree increments, like 15, 30, 45, and 60. And I'll show how that works. And so if I have a new drawing, it's just a blank template like they're using here, and then I go to my polar tracking and I set that up at 15 degrees. When I draw a line, and I'm going to turn off my grid here so you can see it, with polar tracking on, I'll get this green line, which is what's called a track. And at 0 degrees, it tracks out a line. And then if I move this, there's 15, I get another track line, 30, 45. And so it allows you, it kind of works like a drafting machine. Old drafting machines were set up in 15-degree increments. And what you do is you track it to the angle, and then you type the distance. And so I could say 10. And then I would draw a 10-inch line. at a 45-degree angle. And so it's very smart. It knows what you want to do, and it has these tools to assist you in setting those things up. And so it's all part of how to create these different geometries. And as we work with the textbook, it'll explain to us how to work with things like line weights, dynamic user coordinate systems, gizmos, annotation scales, units, and things like that, which we'll explain as we go through the textbook. And then as we take a look, we're able to then use things like function keys. We can hit like the F1 key. Like if we wanted to get help on the circle command, we can hover over the circle command. And then as it content sensitive help is enabled, we can then hit the F1 key. And then that will take us to the circle command, and we get the digital textbook or the digital help screens that come with the book or come with the software. And so it's very helpful to be able to invoke the help command to learn how to use different commands. If I hit the escape key, escape is a very good command that'll help clean up your screen. But if, for example, if I wanted to know how to use arcs, I could hover over the arc command, and then I could hit the F1 key, and then it will go to the arc command, and it'll tell me every different way possible with CAD to draw arcs. And then it tells us a little bit about model space and layouts, and there's a default floor plan drawing that comes with the software once you install it. If you haven't got it, I'll put it in the D2L, but for example, here's our floor plan. And so I'm going to open that drawing, and it opens in what's called model space, which is an infinite drawing board. If I turn the wheel on the mouse, it increases the zoom magnification. If I pan it, I can move it around. And so if I want to see Jane's cubicle, she's in room 6123, got a phone, and that's how facilities managers will use layouts to be able to coordinate office space, locations, furniture. You can customize the screen as we go through and we start working with AutoCAD. We have a number of different things like toolbars that we can work with by going tools, toolbars, AutoCAD. And for example, if I wanted to have modify, oftentimes I'll put like modeling toolbars on, and then here's my modeling toolbar that I can go through and work with. We'll work with different things like different workspaces. And so here we have a drafting and annotation workspace. If we went to a 3D modeling workspace, we would see our toolbar change to 3D modeling. And then we can come back here, drafting and annotation. And so here's our ribbon. As we go through, we have our draw commands, modify commands. If you right click in an empty area of the ribbon, you can turn on and off the panels. And so as we go through, if I turned off the draw panel, it's no longer there. And so this is sort of a common area that will happen to new students, is like they'll be looking to match the interface. What you do is you go to a blank area here, you right click, and you can then turn on and off the different panels within AutoCAD. You can have multiple drawings open. As we go through, you can see I have my plate title block here, and this has got my geometry that we'll be using for our first drawing. And so in our first drawing, what we'll do is we'll open the plate title block, and then we'll create drawings from Module 1 of these different drawing geometries. And so we'll have these laid out for you within the CAD system. So here would be like our plate 1 title block. And so what we would do is then go through and draw our first plate. And so I would come into to my line command. I don't know why this is here, but I'll just have to work with it, I think, for right now. And I can go and draw lines. on my template. And so that's how we've got the course organized. As we start to work with CAD and things like that, we'll have these different drawings with these different title blocks that you can download. So you can download these. This is from Module 1. And in Module 1, we'll create these different geometries. And we have videos for you as well. And so you can watch the videos for how to create these. And so I've got an instructor video, which will tell you how to do that. And then we're going to follow through with the textbook. And so as we go through and we work with the textbook, we can have these different drawings open. If I want to go back to a basic drawing with nothing in it, I can just click on one of these other tabs of an open drawing. And then we can customize the screen. So for example, you may notice that the interface background color is white. If I right click and I go to Options under Display and go to Colors, you can then modify that. And so as I recall, the first version of AutoCAD that I worked on was this color right here. And so you can go through and customize, just like on the newer cars where you can customize the dashboard and the interface with different LEDs. AutoCAD allows you to customize the options with different colors and things like that. And so I can go and I can set up my color, background color as white. So it's like a piece of paper. And then we'll go through and we'll take a look at these different exercises at the end of the chapter. But primarily, we'll work with drawing labs that we'll create for you. Alrighty, so that ends the Chapter 1 lecture on the user interface.